That I'm going to say Wingo's dad, Aaron the second, and it was my first time at Origin. It was my first time visiting a coffee farm. I had been living in Nicaragua, learning to speak a little Spanish here and there, and it just kind of took off from there. So, Aaron, thanks for joining us this morning. Um, you're the latest generation of coffee farmer from the Mierisch family. So thanks for coming and talking with us today.
Thank you for having me. We really appreciate the invitation. And from everyone from Fincas Mierisch, from the family to our employees, we deeply appreciate our relationship with Batdorf and Bronson. And obviously with you, I'm 28 years old. So I think that's 3/4 of my lifetime that we've been in partnership with y'all. And we truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's been quite some time, and I know that I'm not sure if you could see it on the logo behind Josh there, but part of it says Desde 1908. So one of the things I do like to focus a little on history. So maybe you could give us a little history of the family and farming in Nicaragua. Obviously, our relationship has been over 22 years, but you guys have been farming coffee in Nicaragua for over 100 years, which
Of
is
course,
quite
yeah.
remarkable.
Yeah, so it all started with my great grandfather. He was actually a geologist by trade, but he actually came to Nicaragua much earlier than 1908. He was hired by the government at the time to help with studying the land in order to build the National Railroad. But after his work was finished around the 1890s, they didn't have enough money to pay him. So they were like, well, we have the next best thing. We have some land. Do you want it? And that was Fincas Las Lajas, which now belongs to my grandfather's brother.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where it all started. But actually, 1908 is the year he first started planting coffee. He had the farm before, but I think it was mostly just beans and lemons and other crops. But it wasn't around that time that the president of Nicaragua, Jose Santos Zelaya, he decided to promote coffee because his family were also coffee producers. So the government started giving off these tax incentives, these subsidies to encourage people to get into coffee. And my grandfather fell in love with Nicaragua, fell in love with coffee farming, and now I will be the fifth generation coffee producer in our family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So things have changed obviously in the 100+ years you
Oh,
guys
okay.
have been.
Yeah,
And I know I'm familiar with the Lajas farm. Isn't that Ernesto? Because
that's
doesn't
Ernesto.
Ernesto runs that farm now, right? And but you guys, let's see. So in the Fincas Mierisch stable proper right now, is it 5 different farms that you guys are managing?
It's nine.
9. Okay. And that does that include Honduras as
No,
well?
that's just Nicaragua. Then we have the three farms in Honduras.
Okay, yeah. So you guys have quite a different spread of farms, and for me, this is what I'm kind of segueing to here is just the processes you guys use, how you manage the farms. Really, it's kind of in the 20 years that I've been dealing with coffee, a lot has changed, and it really has been in the 10 to 15 years that
So
this whole separation of lots, doing different processes. It used to be everybody just washed coffee the same way in basically all of Central America. But you guys really are pioneers in how to manage farms, process coffees differently, and really kind of create this kaleidoscope of offerings and flavors for people to kind of sift through and find their own special gems. So, how about if you share a little bit about that process with us?
yeah, I think like you mentioned, I think the main factor that established us when we transitioned from mostly commercial farming to specialty was that lot separation, focusing on specific varieties, separating them by pick date, the specific plot or plantillo on the farm where it's picked in, and just making sure we're able to track that coffee all the way from when it's picked, if it's going through the wet mill for either the wash process or the honey process, all the way down to the dry mill up to export as well. But in terms to farm management, it's just trying to work in conjunction with nature, especially because a lot of these farms are in different microclimates. So it's not like we can just establish a go-to formula for all these farms. It's taken many years of just trial and error to actually be able to adapt to these different microclimates. So I think that's something we do really well. We're able to adapt to the surroundings that we're working
Yeah, people are asking me about certifications a lot, and obviously environmental factors that people consider when purchasing, or in your case, growing coffee. And some of your farms are, when I start explaining to people how when you walk onto a farm, you can really just recognize diversity, recognize the health of all the plants and trees and birds and wildlife and
in.
such. It's always your guys' farms really that kind of pop into my head when I'm like, wow, this is,
Yeah,
you as I would picture this forest,
yeah,
even if there weren't a coffee farm here. It really
yeah,
is truly just coffee growing like in the forest.
exactly.
There are some exceptions, but like you said, a lot of it depends on microclimate
Yeah,
and what the coffee's needs are. So yeah, it's quite a ecological experience to walk through some of your farms and hear the birds and see the diversity of flora and fauna.
yeah. Los Placeres is actually Rainforest Alliance certified.
Yep.
We also have our other farm, Limoncillo, that's UTZ certified. I guess now with the merger of these two companies, I guess they'll both become like that merged
Yeah.
certification. But both of these farms have quite a bit of land that we actually reserve as like protected rainforest. The largest is actually Limoncillo, which I believe is around 27 manzanas. I'm
Yeah,
not really great at converting to like hectares.
I'll translate later. I'll do the
Yeah.
conversion. I got my chart. Yeah.
And then also Los Placeres also has a considerable amount of land. Like you said, when we usually take clients to visit, Los Placeres is known for like that horseback ride. And you're just riding, and like you said, you just hear all these types of bugs and birds, and sometimes it's like really overwhelming. Like there's all this noise, and you're like, where is it like coming from? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's true. And just for anyone out there that's listening, the Finca Los Placeres is the primary source for a lot of the coffees that we at Bad Dwarf are purchasing. It shows up as Josh and Ben have spoken about recently in some of these other blend focused broadcasts. It is a coffee that we've been using and continue to use for years, and it's the consistency we get from there, and like you said, Edwin, it's it is rainforest certified. We don't market the coffee as such. um we just sell the coffee for what it is. So yeah, it's always interesting to have that conversation with people. How I can tell you this about the farm, but we don't put it on the bag. And
yeah.
at some point there's only so many little kind of stickers and labels and stuff. And I've talked. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I pulled up an image right now, which is showing on the screen for folks who are watching, and it's that classic Mierisch bag, and it has in this case, product of Honduras. Then it shows the crop, 2016, 2017 in this case, and then a series of 3 numbers after that as well. And I just pulled that up as you were talking about the long history that the family has in being able to perform that tracking and that really clear understanding of where the copies are coming from in any given origin. So I wanted folks
Yeah.
to see that. If you haven't been through our roastery, you'll see those bags. They're some of the most beautiful bags that we receive, and they're really popular. And so I just wanted to point that out when you're looking at it. That just kind of speaks to that level of intentionality that's going into the coffees that are being produced.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of a good little segue. So people ask me at times, so what do you do? What do you do on an origin trip, right? So in this case, when I go and visit Nicaragua and visit the Mierisch family, so you mentioned all the different farms, Wingo. All those coffees usually end up at one dry mill, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, dry mill Don Esteban. Yeah.
Yep. And basically, a lot of what we spend our time doing is tasting those coffees at this dry mill after they've spent enough time, at least resting, that we feel like we can get a fair assessment of cup quality.
Absolutely.
So these different lots, they make it down to the dry mill. They're ready. We're setting up all these coffees on a table to taste them, and like you mentioned, there's different varieties. What else?
At the dry mill, we really emphasize what it's called slow drying. Pretty much, you just want to extend the drying period as long as as long as it's practical enough. Mostly because you want to keep the embryo alive for as long as possible. This helps not just with like better flavors, but also with the shelf life of the coffee. We did experiments back in the day where we actually compared a coffee that was dried fairly quickly, what's maybe standard in Nicaragua. Nicaragua is very hot. You can probably dry a coffee on a concrete bed in 4 or 5 days
No.
easily. Compare that to like maybe a 15-day slow dry. And our clients definitely tell us that this slow drying process has helped to extend that shelf life. So that's number one. And then that's also where we do all our like little experiments as well. If we're doing any types of like special fermentations, I can go into greater detail, but that's also where we have our cupping lab. It's very important that we cup every single lot that comes into the dry mill, not just our coffees, because we also offer the dry mill to other producers in the area. every single lot gets a specific and unique lot number that's never repeated that same harvest. And that's how we cup in the lab. We just get a sample of it, but it just comes lot number
Sure.
650 or something. So that helps us not be influenced by like what the variety is, who the producer is, because that's a lot of fear with people who are like, well, those cuppers, they have a better relationship with this producer. That's why they're scoring his cups better than not mine. So we try to be as objective as possible when we try to do these analysis.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's mostly also just the quality control, or even Honduras as well. Like with the COVID crisis, with the closed borders, we've actually had to have the samples sent over here to Nicaragua so we can cup them and actually prepare for export
You know
because
that
we're not to
that leads
go
me
over.
Yeah.
to a question that just came up on the feed here. Brendan was asking, what coffees are you excited about for the future? I'm sure Bob was going to be asking this eventually, but one of the folks watching just asked if you can talk to that.
Absolutely. That's actually a great question because I was actually talking about it with my dad. It's a varietal called yellow pacas. It's actually one of the component varietals of the pacamara. So a pacamara is a cross between a pacas and a maragogi that was developed in El Salvador. But what's special about our yellow pacas that has me really excited is that some hybrid varietals, they tend to revert back to one of their like component varietals, but in a very small instances, 11, 13%. So let's say we have a yellow pacamara. Sometimes it'll revert back to being a red pacas or a red maragogi. It's very rare for it to switch colors. That's, I guess, like what I'm saying. So what's very special about this yellow pacas is that it actually came from our yellow pacamara. This year was probably the first harvest we had in Nicaragua, also in Honduras. And I was actually like blown away by it. I thought it was like a yellow pacamara, but then I saw the beans, the small round beans, and I was like, I have no idea what this coffee is. So we actually had to like call the farm and be like, whoa, what's this lot and everything like in this specific plot? And they're like, yeah, that's like the yellow pacas that we like transferred over. And we have a lot of high hopes for that varietal. It's tastes amazing.
Yeah, I've experienced that coffee on the table. It's the petite yellow paca mara petite, right? Or little
No,
paca.
it's actually just just the pacas varietal that
Yeah.
just mutated to the yellow color, but it's
Okay.
amazing. Yeah.
So not sorted out small bean pacamara.
No. It's the
Okay.
actual pacas variety. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and that's a variety that's been, like you said, quite popular in both Honduras and also in El Salvador as well. In the Pacas. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. When you see like Cup of Excellence in Honduras and El Salvador, you always see like pacas.
Yeah,
It's very well represented. Yeah.
for sure.
Nicaragua, not so much. Nicaragua tended to go more to the red catuai, catura
Hmm.
varietal, even going as far as maracaturra, which is the cross between caturra and maragogi, which isn't, it's not that common, but it's a really tasty varietal, which
Yeah.
like kind of like went off the map.
Okay. So you mentioned closed borders and some of the stuff that's happening in relation to COVID-19. I know that Nicaragua was one of the few countries that kind of wasn't really it brings a smile to your face, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There wasn't much in
Feeling
terms of
about that, yeah.
curfews or restrictions on movement within the country, unlike Guatemala and Honduras.
Yes.
So what's currently going on in Nicaragua?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, that was the problem. They just been like really slow to react. It probably wasn't until like 3 weeks or a month ago that they actually acknowledged that COVID was present, like in the country. But then you just have that disinformation where they're not really releasing the proper numbers and everything. But the positive side is that people are taking personal responsibility, personal action.
Yeah.
Like even our businesses, we're like taking everybody's temperature. We're giving out like the alcohol gel so people are always disinfecting, the face masks,
Mm-hmm.
also orienting people to about social distancing, not just at work, but also
Yeah.
outside of as well. So where the maybe the authorities have failed to like institute like measures, we are glad to see that at least people are taking that responsibility themselves.
Yeah. And, fortunately, you guys are what part of the harvest or cycle of the farm cycle are you currently at? I know that this is kind of the flowering sort of downtime a year, at least
Exactly.
from a farm management. And I think that benefits, you're not having to move as many people around in the fields as you would be. So that's a positive. um,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
and I also know that, having purchased a few different lots of coffee from you guys this year, we were really, kind of on it in order to get those coffees, cupped, approved, and shipped to get stuff moving sooner than later. So I feel like at least, we're in a good position in terms of our purchases from you guys for this year. What are your kind of concerns sort of moving forward at this point?
I think the specialty market is definitely going to change in the sense that I think people are going to start to slowly shy away from these very expensive, like high scoring coffees and maybe
Mhm.
come back a little bit to maybe like a more accessible 86, a good price 86, something
Yeah.
type of one. We definitely noticed that people shifted. Like if someone had an order for micro lots, they were like, do you have any commercial coffee? Because that's just what people are like looking for, something that they can, I guess, sell quicker. That's one
Yeah.
thing. The other thing is, I guess, more financing, not just in Nicaragua, because this kind of like COVID took like an economic hit on a lot of these countries.
Sure.
So I'm guessing usually banks don't lend money in like recessions or in a depression. So if a lot of these producers are going to be suffering and obtaining like financing.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's something that we don't always think about is, how do you finance a harvest, right? How do you keep the gears turning? Obviously, it's something that we're thinking about in all of our businesses right now as we're seeing,
Yeah.
or at least we saw shops closing and we're slowly opening things back up here. So just kind of going back to, you mentioned those sort of uber specialty lots. I know one of the unfortunate things that, at least with specialty coffee, that occurred this year was the cancellation of the expo or the specialty coffee conference that was to be held in Portland, Oregon. We had plans. We were going to highlight or focus and showcase some of those real special coffees. So, and we talked a little bit about that. Maybe you could just kind of revisit that here real quick. And I know that one of the questions, it sounds like a question was, what are you excited about? You mentioned that variety, the yellow paca variety. Obviously, currently, we were really excited about tasting some of those other super special lots that you guys produced this year. And I'll kind of also just mention that your aunt Eliane was going to join us today. However, she wasn't feeling so hot. But so this is my way of saying, hey, you should send us samples of those really special coffees, and then we could cup them here in a few weeks together. And I'll get you and Eliane and anyone else who wants to join us on the horn so we can cup them together.
Absolutely.
And so what do you think some of those coffees will be?
Yeah, so we sometimes do like our own private auction called Los Favoritos. So like our plan this year was to kind of have that, but during SEA in Portland, but kind of more as like a live auction, like ship the coffees over there, have them spot so people can buy them. From Nicaragua, we had quite a few yellow pacamaras, and all types of processes from washed honeys, full naturals to some experimental fermentations. Then from Elian's farm, Las Delicias, we had quite a few javanicas. There was a really good honey javanica that I was just blown away by. It kind of tasted like biting into like a strawberry muffin, but like a very juicy muffin. It was like, yeah, we kind of like look back and I was like, it's a shame because we had all these really good lots for
Yeah.
people to try, and but we understand like the timing was just not right with the
And I
COVID
want to let
out.
you know that we also have a picture of Eliana up on the screen right now, so you can say hi to her. She is here in spirit, at least.
All right, she's probably watching from the comfort of her home right now, getting all embarrassed.
I wanted
Hello.
to I wanted to throw in a request just for a question that might be asked of someone who is not as familiar with specialty coffee that was referenced earlier, and kind of
Yeah,
ties into this. When you talk about numbers, can you just give us a really quick understanding, kind of the layperson's understanding of what those numbers reference as you were talking about people looking at how they're purchasing and what they're purchasing? You mentioned some numbers. Can you give us some context for what those actually mean so some of
yeah,
our fans can
absolutely.
understand that?
Especially with like these high scoring coffees, they tend to be smaller quantities,
Hmm.
maybe 3, 5 bags at most, because you have to think how most people actually ship this coffee. Most people tend to prefer air freighting, and air freighting is quite expensive. So, but so they can say, I can save all this money instead of getting 5 bags of this coffee. I can get 50 or 70 bags of a cheaper coffee that I can sell easier
Hmm.
because maybe people are not spending as much money for coffee right now.
And you
So,
referenced when you say scores, what does that mean when you talk about a score for a coffee? What is that referencing?
so we base it off the SCA like scoring protocol out of 100 points.
Hmm.
Anything over 80 points is considered specialty coffee. For us, what we consider like a micro lot, which is a small amount of coffee, will be over 86 points.
Got it.
Yeah. But when I'm talking like high scoring coffees like these, like what we were going to take to SCA,
Hmm.
those will be 88 points and above,
Got it.
getting it.
So a 2 point difference there,
Yeah.
but that two
But
points
you'd
can
be
actually
surprised.
end up with quite a bit of a price differential.
It is. Yeah. That's why you see like a lot of producers just wanting to experiment with like new processing methods. Because a lot of them think if even if I can get 1 point better on this scoring sheet, that can translate to 50 cents,
Got it.
a dollar extra, which does add up for a producer. So yeah, like it is pretty interesting to see how just those 2 points can impact not just the quality but also the price that a producer is receiving.
Yeah. Thanks. Perfect answer.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we
people,
call it.
you
Talk to
know,
you.
people like 100-point scales, right? So this was something that, a while ago as an industry, we decided, once again, we were influenced a lot by what's going on in other industries, in this case, the wine industry.
Yeah.
And, everybody, you're walking down the shelf in the supermarket and you see that, 90-point wine on the shelf. And it was kind of trying to put things in terms that everyone could understand. So that was the kind of origin of the the, the developing that 100-point scale to quantify what we feel the quality of these coffees are. And like Ervin said, anything over 80 is considered specialty coffee. It's numerical score plus defect counts that we'll do when we assess the green coffee on there. And anything, going over 85 points, you start getting into, real high quality coffees, and the price of those coffees can change pretty dramatically. So you did mention at one point, I'm going to ask you one more question here, Ervin. You mentioned the Havanica that was coming from the Las Delicias. To our customers, they're probably familiar with the Habanica variety that we've bought and sold from the San Jose farm that you guys have. One of my favorite farms for sure. Las Delicias, I know, is kind of, right up against it, next to the same area there. But let's, maybe you could just give me a little history here on that variety and how it was discovered, where it came from. Yeah, let's hear it.
So for a long time, a lot of people, including my like grandfather and my dad, they used to think that it came from like a family of Typica. But I guess more and more research has shown that it's actually like a Ethiopian landrace, the Java variety, I guess. And the way we actually got a hold of the seeds is that the story is my grandfather and my dad were driving back from the farm, and on the side of the road, they saw this guy just selling fruit. They decided to stop by, buy some fruit. And the salesman like told them like, I have these like coffee seeds if you want them. There's this rare variety that's called Java. And they're like, okay. So my dad was honest. He was like, I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him at all. But my dad like felt really bad for him. So they bought the seeds. We later find out that in that area where they found this guy, there was a French research center that had a nursery there. So they had brought all these different types of varietals in the hopes of being able to spread it, growing in Nicaragua in the region. They unfortunately went bankrupt, and I guess maybe the man used to work for the research center, decided, you know what, if I'm not going to get paid, I might as well just take a little something with me. And we got lucky. He wasn't bluffing. It actually turned out to be the Java, which is characterized as kind of being like a long berry, not much the rounder, like Bourbon types of coffee were very prevalent.
Yeah, definitely has a visual appearance much different than other coffees. Similar in appearance, I would say, to the geisha variety, which has been obviously very recognizable and famous in terms of the specialty coffee market. Yeah. I often say, the Peterson family in Panama put geisha, on the map, obviously. And it was the Mierisch family in Nicaragua that put the Java Habanica variety on the map. I know that seed stock has been exported.
Yeah.
I know that our friends in Bolivia are growing that coffee and producing that coffee now. It is
insane. It's adapted so well to the Bolivian like soil and climate. I got a chance to try it. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite pleasurable. I like that coffee quite a bit, and we have purchased and sold that, so hopefully that might show up on one of these little micro lot cuppings that we can look forward to doing. So yeah, it's I've said there's been times, I mean, everybody's trying to grow geisha in places, and I've had your Hava coffee, and I've said, this coffee tastes more jasmine like and floral and sugary than some of these geisha varieties that I've tasted. So that's I always like hearing that story, the random fruit, just lets you know you should always stop at those fruit stands on the side of the road, because you never know what you're gonna find, right, Josh?
Absolutely.
Buying magical beans on the side of the road can lead to all sorts of, surprises.
It ended up getting like second place in Cup of Excellence, I think in 2007, I believe. That's the highest we've ever placed in Cup of Excellence in Nicaragua.
No, that's it's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. And it really does seem, for some reason, it seems to really, really like the conditions there at San Jose and Las Delicias. I mean, unlike what I feel like I've seen with some geisha variety trees, it's prolific. I mean, it really produces a lot of fruit and grows really well.
Absolutely.
And I know that you guys have had just really awesome results with the San Jose farm in terms of production and quality that farm produces just year after year. So, not to mention the fact that it's just beautiful up there.
I want to
Nice
let you
view.
know that Haciel Petata sends a bunch of hearts your way.
Hazel, yeah.
Yeah,
She's our dry mill manager. Yeah.
Watching now, and she's sending love. So
yeah. She's getting ready to have a child, if not already have.
Oh, Mazel Tov, how nice.
Yeah.
All right, so I caught this image here, and I wanted to share it with you, but it's gonna disrupt things a little bit for me to get it behind me. Do you want to see it, real quick?
I don't know, Josh. I'm not sure if I do want to see it.
All right, what we're gonna see here.
All right, lay it on us.
Okay,
Is
here
it
it
something
comes.
that I'm going to be embarrassed by?
No, not at all, not at all.
All right.
Oh, is that?
Yeah. There, I saw it for a brief second. Yeah.
There it is. That's the belt buckle.
Yeah. In
Okay.
fact, I was, well, I don't know if I should do this or not. I don't know if I want to like hold my, waistline up to the camera, but in honor of this broadcast this morning, I as well have my Fincas Mierisch belt buckle on.
And I unfortunately do not. The backstory here is that I've been harassing Bob to get me a Fincas Mierisch belt buckle for 6 years now. I will get one. I know it's going to happen. I just said another 6 years, another 6 years, and we'll make it reality.
Got to put your time in, Josh. Minimum 20-year minimum.
Well, the great news is that that's exactly what we're talking about today, right? We're talking with our partners that we have these relationships with, and we laugh about having to put in our time, but it's true. A multi-generational family that has been leading the way in coffee excellence, and we're just lucky to have been able to create a relationship with people that really are our partners in this business. And so that's fine. If I have to wait another 15 years, I'll wait, because I have faith that the relationship will still be there. So
it happened a lot sooner.
Yeah.
We'll get to them. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. But yeah, so Aaron, thanks again for coming and joining us. Fifth generation coffee grower here. Obviously, I think you and everyone else in your family know how appreciative we are as a business, and how much I value personally the relationship that we have. It's as always, it's more of a friendship than a business partnership. So thanks for taking the time to come out. I hope Elian is feeling better here shortly, and it's making me want to just get on the horn when we're done here and just call everyone in the family that your cousins. I know Ernesto. My most recent trip. In fact, the last trip I did this year was a trip in Nicaragua in the middle of February, spending some time with you guys before this whole global pandemic thing kind of took over and swept everyone up. So thank you so much for all the hard work that you guys put in producing this coffee year after year, and hopefully we can continue to grow and share these coffees with our customers and make those connections. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we really appreciate our relationship with Batdorf and Bronson. And like you said, like it's these partnerships that really just give us hope and like help us continue to do what we do. So we really appreciate it. And we appreciate all your customers that drink our coffee at the end of the day.
Whether they know it or not. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll take it. Yeah.
Thanks again for joining us today. Bob, We always appreciate you letting all of us, you know, at the Batdor family here in the U.S. In the U.S. Have more access to these amazing relationships, and it's great to see you again. And we look forward to seeing you. Obviously, when you're able to come visit us, and I know Bob looks forward to visiting you when he gets back down to Central America as well. So, but until then, we'll just have to sit back and enjoy your coffee, right? So,
Thank you, Josh.
okay.
Yep. Thanks,
Um,
Josh.
you bet. Folks, just stay on for another second here while I'm going to go ahead and end the show from this page, from this screen. Everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. We know that you know we're stretching into the third month of this the COVID-19 situation, and we've been working really hard to get to create ways to talk with folks. And I know that your time is precious, and we appreciate you coming to spend your time with us here. If you're watching live now, thank you, and if you're watching afterwards, thank you as well. We look forward to seeing you for the rest of this week. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., we're going to have a tour of the Olympia facility, roasting facility with Jim, and Jim is also going to go over some of the key sustainability things that he's helped both create and manage across time for his long relationship in the company as a facilities manager, and really kind of one of our chief boosters for our sustainability programs in our operations. So that's going to be a great tour. If you've never been to a Batdorf roastery tour, check in at 9 o'clock tomorrow. That's going to be really great to be with him, and it's going to be great to watch the process of roasting occurring as well. And we'll be back with Ben on Friday, again at 9 o'clock. And then later today, on this same channel, you'll get to join Brendan as he does a Clever Dripper with the very coffee that Bob was having today, the Colombia. That's going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time. So join Brendan later today. Join us here tomorrow to be with Jim in a roastery tour, and then Ben from the Coffee Garage on Friday as we continue to help everyone create cafes at home. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.